So I started as a keyboard player. And then when I started doing my solo music on my own, I switched to guitar. Mainly because when you go on stage behind 3 tiers of keyboards, it's a little odd. It always felt like I was giving some sort of lecture rather than being on stage rocking out. I mean, it's so much more freedom to have a guitar and be able to move around the stage. So I taught myself guitar and started singing. And then eventually taught myself bass and a little bit of drums. I think I wrote a lot about angst and being a young, person in the world, trying to connect with the world. And it's interesting that when I finally had an album out, and it's the only thing that people have to reference me by, is a lot of music that I wrote from the time I was about 17 till I was about 19, and that's like my living record, which is really, it's kind of funny because obviously everything was very heavy. Loneliness, misunderstood, wanting to connect, wanting to know, and then a little bit of spice of the injustices of the world and why does this happen and why does that happen. I ended up getting a record deal in the whole craze, the whole Seattle feasting frenzy, which was, I was proud of, the fact that I was getting a record deal, I guess, but mainly because I felt like finally I was going to be able to release some of the music I was making. Because part of the thing that I struggled with being in Seattle during that time is I was part of the music scene, I guess, but I was never really part of it. I was a part of it, but I was always sort of over here, because again, I'm not sure people knew what to do with me because I wasn't really sort of, I wasn't a sub-pop band, I wasn't an indie band, I wasn't rough enough for some things, but I wasn't polished enough for other things. And I feel like I was put in a position where I was waiting a lot. So I got, you're going to sign a development deal, you're going to sign a publishing deal, you're going to sign a record deal. Like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So I didn't release any of my songs like independently because I was about to be doing this. And I bought it. I was like, oh yeah, my stuff will eventually be released. The only downside about that is that I have 1 album out. And over my whole span, because there was so much strategizing and waiting and this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and so in hindsight I kind of wish I had just released my songs instead of waiting for them to figure it out. The first deal I got was a development deal with Epic, and it sounded like a great deal because basically the deal that I signed, they said, we want to give you some money to live off of so you can focus on songwriting, and let's see what happens over the year, and then sort of like we'll give you a testing period, and then we'll evaluate later if we're going to actually sign you. But in the meantime, it was like an opportunity to just focus solely on writing, which was great. But pretty quickly after I signed that deal, I realized that I actually had signed something that I didn't think that I was signing, but they started finding people for me to write with. So most of the people that I got paired up with for songwriting, these brilliant, amazing matches that were supposed to create this magic and these wonderful songs that were going to launch my career or whatever they were doing, I'm not really sure. But most of them were these men who were in their sort of, probably mid-30s to mid-40s, but to me just seemed middle-aged because I was 20. One of them was actually Glenn Ballard, who actually did co-write with Alanis Morissette, her whole album, ironically. And, was a very nice person, but and all these people were very nice people, and they were all talented songwriters, but it just was so fabricated. And we were sitting in this room, to be sitting in a room and say, go, and they all were in these really nice studios, and, it wasn't like a couple people grabbing a couple guitars and sitting on a couch and jamming. It was like, it was supposed to be manufacturing songs, and it was very uncomfortable. I was paired with 2 women, but again, both of them were much older, and they were professional songwriters. That's what they did, you know, and professional lyric writers. And that just was such a weird thing to me. I remember sitting in the offices of Sony in New York, and I'm supposed to be sort of feeling like I've made it, you know, I should be feeling grateful, and and my A&R person telling me, okay, so we found like the perfect song, and I think that, you know, we've really got to do this. This guy, you know, Jimmy Webb, he's like world-renowned songwriter, like this is going to be the thing. And at the time I had like bleach blonde hair, and the song was Just Like Marilyn. And the chorus, like, literally was like, don't it make you feel like a kid again, just like Marilyn. I'm like, I'm fucking 20 years old, you know? Doesn't make me feel like a kid again, because that's not part of my childhood. Like, you know, none of this has anything to do with me. Why? Why do I have to do this song? And that was like it. I was like, I can't do this anymore, so I left. I felt pressures from both sides, I have to be honest, from men and women, because I felt like the pressure. First of all, when I first started out, I was so naive. I mean, I was like 13 or 14 years old, going to clubs, going, I like music, I like making music, I have a keyboard, can I be in your band? You know, I just wanted to play, and I wasn't thinking like, but I'm a girl, or I was just like, I play music, I want to play music, can I be, you know. So my first sort of realization that maybe that's not okay was how hard it was to get it into a band. It took forever, like, you know, for someone to say that it was either someone would say, yeah, great, and then start hitting on me, or they would say, yeah, great, and start telling me what I needed to change. So it took a long time before I was able to just be in a band. So that was, I think, then I started to realize, maybe there's something wrong with being a girl in a band, or something different. And then it was negotiating with the clubs, negotiating with bar owners, you know, whatever, you know, when you show up for sound check, or when you've sound checked and then you leave and then you're trying to get back in, to say, no, I'm actually supposed to be up there. Like, I'm not just visiting my boyfriend or somebody, you know, this is actually where I'm supposed to be.